Welcome to Thriving Tribesmen. My name is Kuru, your host, and I'm excited to be making this episode. So lately I've been speaking to a lot of guys who are considering divorce as a solution to a sexless relationship. And usually it's a really, really bad idea. And usually I see them, they've come to this conclusion because they feel like they've tried everything in order to change the sexless relationship. And usually they haven't tried that much. They think they've tried everything based off of what they've learned online, whether they've gone to counseling or whether they've gone to some sort of therapy or even done some sort of program, and they've tried all of that and nothing has changed. So therefore, I've tried everything, so it's time for me to ask for a divorce. And generally, it's the worst idea. Now, when it comes to divorce, there are grounds to go through a divorce. Usually, if you've been cheated on, that's grounds for you to divorce because the dynamic changes, and it's a very terrible dynamic to take somebody who's cheated on you, especially when your wife cheats on you, and then you continue the relationship. It's usually a very bad idea. So when it comes to being in a sexless relationship, when it comes to really trying to change it, it reminds me of a buddy of mine who was desperate to learn golf, and he was trying so many things. He'd gone for a bit of coaching, but I don't know if it was really bad coaching or he went for a really cheap pro PGA person, and the person wasn't teaching them that much. There was still, the game was not that good. And he was watching videos online and nothing was working out for him. And it reminds me a lot of you guys, because a lot of you guys have been online, you've tried being on Facebook groups, Reddit, you've tried so many things in order to try and fix this. You've even got to therapy or tried coaching, and it hasn't worked. And there's a few factors why it hasn't worked, and we've covered them on other episodes. But the main factor is that usually people, especially when it comes to coaching, therapy, they take one size fits all. They say, therapists look at you and say, your trauma is the reason why you are in a sexless relationship. From a percentage perspective, it makes up about 10%, the trauma being the influencer of your sexless relationship. And from the coaching perspective, it's one size fits all. You're not man enough around your partner, so that's why you're not attracting your partner. So you have to become something that you're not in order to become attractive to your partner, which doesn't work. Again, only works for a little while but stops working. So it becomes something else. There's something else that's happening. And my friend, like I said, he went through this process of looking for information in order to get better, and he never got better until one time we said, can you go with me and just see what's going on? As I was watching him play, and he lost so many balls on that day, I discovered that there was something wrong with his weight distribution. And not to go into detail what that involves, it's something wrong with his weight distribution. Let's fix that. We fixed that over a few rounds. And then all of a sudden, he started hitting it perfectly straight. By that point, he started hitting it straight as compared to just hitting it wayward. And the difference was from him hitting it wayward to hitting it straight, there was just that lack of knowledge where somebody would just look at them and say, okay, this is your problem and this is how you deal with it. And a lot of you guys within your sexless relationship, it's just the lack of knowledge of moving your relationship from sexless to sexual success. I'm getting ahead of myself. So this is what the main problem, and the problem isn't resolved by you changing into another relationship, because 9 times out of 10, and this is coming from the guys that I spoke to 6 years ago on Reddit, talking about their sexless relationship, and then when I was talking to them, I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. I didn't know how to explain to them why divorce was a bad idea. They ended up divorced, and I've still kept in touch with them. And the weird part about it is that at least 90% of them are back within a sexless relationship because they never figured out what it was that put them into that sexless situation. And usually there's a contribution that is coming from you, and that contribution that is causing that sexless relationship is because of the lack of knowledge that you have for you to maintain a high frequency sex drive within your relationship, which is a skill. It is knowledge and something that you can apply as a skill. So when it comes to relationships now, when I see people saying they want to get a divorce, they overlook the fact that they lack the skill to do so, and moving themselves into another relationship is so detrimental to so detrimental to themselves and what they're trying to achieve, that they find themselves in this situation where they're continuously sexless, and they've gone maybe sometimes, and I've seen this on occasion, some people have gone to the third relationship and ended up sexless. And this is the third time, if they're still in touch with me, we're talking and say, well, you still haven't fixed that knowledge part. So I think I've hammered that point so much. So let's move on from that point. And really, when it comes to being in a sexless relationship and then moving away from it through divorce, sometimes I know it's justified because you know that we're living a short life in this world and you can't live the rest of your life unhappy. And it's unfair to live unhappy for the rest of your life. So it comes then down to you having to learn the skill. And if you choose an option for divorce, generally what then that entails is then you having to separate from your partner. And generally it's always messy because, again, you have to confront feelings of failure in terms of the relationship. You have to confront the fact that you are going to be alone within, again, so you're going to have to fight for custody for children. And generally the children become collateral damage to, in fact, the casualties of war, basically, because all of a sudden, when you say divorce, it's the declaration of war. All of a sudden, unless you're like one of my buddies who has been very, very courteous with the divorce and made it as smooth as possible with preserving the children, again, but it's preserving the well-being of the children. Because again, when it comes to divorce, I think that's the worst bit. The children get affected more. I was listening to I think it was a podcast, and they're talking about stats that people that are substance abusers and drug addicts, a lot of them, in fact 90% of them, have come from broken homes or places where parents have divorced. Now, what they're saying is not that if you divorce, your children are going to end up drug addicts. That's not what they're saying. They're saying there's a correlation with people who have come from places where the parents have divorced and people that are now dependent on some sort of drug or dependent on alcohol. And again, a lot of chunks of it is just because you've just created that environment that's conducive for them to want to escape pain. So when it comes to divorce, you start realizing that there's a lot more to lose. In fact, if you look at it as a solution, anytime you create a solution for something, you always have to calculate what are the new problems that are going to be happening. So, for example, if you were walking to work from wherever you live, so let's say, for example, you're 5 miles, you have to walk 5 miles every day, if you have to wake up early in the morning, you would have to wake up at least 2 hours before work, because you have to now consider getting ready and then having to walk the distance to get to where you need to go. And if you decided, okay, I'm tired of walking every day and waking up so early in the morning, I want to wake up a bit later, you would have to buy a car. So when you do buy a car, you resolve the solution. So maybe now it takes you 5 minutes instead of an hour to get to work. You've resolved the time problem. But now you've created a new problem, which is now you have to fuel your car. You now have to think about car insurance. You have to consider, other drivers, road tax. There's so many other things that then become problems that now you have to resolve. Just like when you say divorce, you've stopped yourself being unhappy within this relationship. But the new problems that come up is the fact that you now have to go on the dating market. You now have to find a new place to live. You have to find a way of co-parenting, co-parenting effectively. And then also, when you do spend time with the children, you have to make it as effective as possible without having to allow your guilt for divorcing to make you overparent. So there's so many things that now become new problems. Then if you looked at it from an objective point of view and said, you know what, there's a skill that I'm lacking here in order to maintain a good sexual relationship in my life. How do I do that? And how do I bridge that gap? And the few guys that have come into Reignited Men have figured out how to do that. They've done it effectively. In fact, there's one of the guys who came to us, and this was his last resort. Him and his wife had already spoken that they are going to go through a divorce. And he didn't want that, but it's something that they will now come to agreement that, okay, there's nothing else that we can do. They had, inverted commas, tried everything. Now, he came into Reignited Men. This was the last stage. We've worked through all these other issues that he was going through, and then we've bridged that gap between him not being able to keep high frequency sex within his relationship. And we did that without having to tell him to be an alpha male. We did that without telling him you have to confront his trauma and so on. Because again, I believe that you cannot heal somebody from trauma. You can only help them to cope with it better. So we took him through all of this, and I was speaking to him last week, and this is one of the reasons why I was speaking about this episode, making this episode. I was speaking to him, and he was virtually in tears saying, I can't believe my relationship has been saved. I can't believe I can look to the future now because we fixed our relationship. And I'm getting emotional right now thinking about it, because this is what we're doing as Reignited Men. And when you join Reignited Men, this is what you've got to expect, that you get the knowledge to move you from sexless to sexual success. And that knowledge, once you have it, is for life. And that's what I said to one of the other guys, saying, okay, for some weird situation that whatever you've learned right now doesn't work, it is actually setting you up for the next relationship. That, again, if you end up finding yourself still going through divorce, you've learned some skills that will make you so happy. Because there's a few guys who separated because of infidelity that are within Reignited Men. They're having the most amazing relationships now because of the skills that they've learned. So again, I'm saying this because I've come to the realization that our program is unmatched. We are the best in this industry, and I'm declaring it now, we're the best, because I know what the stuff that we're teaching works. It's not one size fit all. It's not it's us really enhancing stuff that you're already doing and making those things look attractive to your partner so that you can be the best version of yourself. And this is why we're excited about this. We're not the place where we're going to be taking more people, or should be taking more people very, very soon. So look out for the information when it comes out. So thank you very much, guys. Hopefully you have a good week. Thank you. Take care.